In this universe, Ronan the Accuser betrayed Thanos. The Mad Titan's thirst for power had met its match. If you keep the path, you can find your way to the light.
Well, if it isn't the supernova.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Marvel What If Season 2 Episode 1 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. I talked about this in previous videos too, but they're doing episodes one per day, so my episode videos will post each morning, usually around the same time. Careful for spoilers from episode 1. If you haven't seen it yet, we'll start at the beginning, work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs and WTF moments, starting with the episode title, What If Nebula Joined the Nova Corps? It's basically, what if Nebula turned good and became a version of Nova much earlier in the timeline than she became good in the MCU? Like, what if she got her redemption much earlier? The Marvel logo opening titles are a little bit different for Season 2. They're doing the shorter version of the opening Marvel logo that they did recently for Loki Season 2 episodes, where it plays a very sped-up version of the traditional Marvel Studios logo. TV shows just in general tend to favor shorter intro titles. There are a couple exceptions to that, but usually it's just like, bam, quick flash the title, then to the actual episode, instead of doing like a really long version of intro scenes. If you go back to the original Marvel Phase 4 episodes, most of the episodes in all the series played the full version of the Marvel Studios intro. Eventually, they started shortening that starting this year. So expect all their future TV series to play like this shorter version of the logo customized for each different series, like when we get to X-Men 97 episodes, because it'll be released under Marvel Studios, so the intro will be just like a little bit different. Or like the Echo episodes that are going to be happening at the beginning of January right after this. Like, Echo is like the next big series that I'll be doing episode videos for after this. But don't worry too much about what's going on with that, because that live action stuff doesn't have too much connection with what's happening on What If Season 2 right now. All the comics pages flipping in the background during this opening title are from the original What If comics. They usually change that to be for whatever characters or show the movie is about from their respective comics. There are a couple times, though, where they do like custom intro titles, like for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, where it's just the Guardians characters instead of all the different Marvel characters. In just like What If Season 1, they transitioned the regular live-action Marvel Studio title to the animated version because it is an animated series. There have been a couple instances where they blended live action with animated elements, like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. They passed through an animated universe. They're just saying like one of the universes in the multiverse is an animated universe. That's kind of the way that this stuff is canon to the live action MCU stuff through the multiverse. Like, these are just taking place in animated universes. This also explains how X-Men 97, or X-Men the Animated Series, is canon to the larger MCU in the grand scheme of things. It's just another universe that happens to be animated. They're also kind of blending live action and animated elements during the Spider-Verse movies, like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This is Donald Glover's Prowler character from the events of Spider-Man Homecoming, just after the events of that movie. They'll continue to do that during Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. Generally, the episode is mostly meant to be a Blade Runner riff on the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and the Nova comics, with a bunch of other space-based characters like Jan Rog from the Captain Marvel movies. Jude Law came back to voice his character from that. Corrigan Meek from the Thor movies are back. Taika Waititi also came back to do his voice. For the most part, in all the What If episodes, all the movie actors came back to do their voices in animation, with a few exceptions. Really good example is that Glenn Close is not doing the voice for Nova Prime during this episode.
Take my hand.
We'd like to express our profound gratitude.
The opening scene is of Nebula finding Yondu's murdered body in an alleyway on Xandar. And even though Yondu is in the episode, Michael Rooker came back to do his voice and he's credited in the episode for the Yondu character. He doesn't really have any speaking lines in the actual episode. He speaks in other episodes though. Like I said, the whole vibe here, like the very noir crime thriller Pouring Rain here, is meant to be a reference to the Blade Runner movie, like Tears in the Rain.
Like tears in rain.
Same thing with all of Nebula's constant voiceovers, just like Deckard's voiceovers in the Blade Runner movie. Things are meant to pick up a little while after Xandar had erected a planet-wide shield wall to keep out Ronan the Accuser during the events of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and in this reality, Ronan successfully killed Thanos when he tried to double-cross him in the first Guardians movie. Nebula explains in this universe, when Ronan came to Sanctuary, he was able to kill Thanos somehow, and in the ensuing fight, killed Gamora and the rest of the Black Order too, except for her, like left her for dead. There are a couple references to the Black Order during this episode. I think the idea is that Ronan the Accuser was able to take the Power Stone and kill all the others, or they didn't find the Power Stone in the first place. They don't really show you him using the Power Stone, so I'm assuming that he probably didn't find it in this episode. There's also no mention of Star-Lord finding the Power Stone in this episode, or Star-Lord just in general. During the aftermath, Nova Prime took pity on Nebula, brought her into the Nova Corps, this being soon after the events of this moment in the first Guardians movie, and even though Nova Prime and the Nova Corps all kind of turn evil through the course of the episode over the course of 5 years, it seems like they're saying at least at first Nova Prime had good intentions when she brought Nebula into the fold, so to speak. Like, she didn't start out being corrupt and evil. So when she puts up the shield wall over the entire planet, that's meant to have been during the final battle in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but things went down differently, like Star-Lord isn't here, some of the other Guardians characters like Rocket doesn't seem like he's here either. Then about 5 years go by with everybody who was on planet trapped on planet with nobody being able to get off planet or get into the planet. Like, they're literally trapped in an isolationist environment. And they basically explain that winds up making things worse ultimately, though. Even though it protects them from Ronan, it makes things worse on the planet because they start rotting metaphorically at the core. All the Ravagers are still a thing. Yondu seemed like he was still leading them before he was killed, or what was left of them on the planet when the shield wall went up. I'm sure the larger group of Ravagers who were outside on another part of space elected another leader, like Starhawk took over that part of the Ravagers. They're probably off doing their own thing in some other part of the galaxy at the moment. Then a bunch of the corrupt Nova Corps members show up, like Peter Serafinowicz's character from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He came back to do the voice again. During the episode, he's basically playing like a worse version of his character from the first movie. If you remember, in the first movie, he wound up sacrificing his life to save everyone from Ronan. They brush off Yondu's death, claiming they don't need to investigate because Yondu was a career criminal. They also probably killed him because they found out that he discovered their plans. Nebula clocks him, noting that he's super sus, that he doesn't want to investigate Yondu's murder. She was also close to Yondu, it sounds like, too.
Is there a problem, Corman?
This is Dandor. All we got are problems.
She also winds up revealing later on that she suspected them the entire time, and was just kind of leading them along, letting them think that she didn't understand what was really going on to draw them out. So the whole idea is that Nebula is meant to be like 3 or 4 steps ahead of all the other characters in the Nova Corps. When he calls her Black Order trash, remember the Black Order were the so-called children of Thanos, so to speak, like the people that he adopted across the worlds that he conquered like Gamora. We saw most of them during the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. Within the MCU, they were Gamora, Nebula, Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, Corvus Glaive, and Cull Obsidian. Like I said, though, I think Ronan killed pretty much all of them except for Nebula in this reality. Nebula goes back to her flying car. That's also meant to be a reference to Deckard's police car from the Blade Runner movie and the constant rain all over the place. Then they play the custom What If intro scene with the shards from many alternate realities like facets of glass, windows into other realities. All the Watchers' voiceover dialogue here is also from the Season 1 intro. Like, a lot of these scenes and moments in these background shards are from Season 1. What they've changed, though, about this is they've added shards of glass from Season 2 episodes, too. So it's kind of Season 1 episodes mixed with Season 2 episodes. Because this is my Episode 1 video, this is like the first time addressing this, I'll do like the full breakdown for what's in all of these shards for this episode, but it'll be the exact same for every single episode, so I won't repeat this for Episode 2, Episode 3, and so on. Generally, the intro progresses in the same fashion as the Season 1 intro, but it starts with Black Panther in his original suit from the Captain America Civil War movie. He got a new one during the first Black Panther movie. Captain Marvel is also wearing her original suit from the first movie because it's just her from that Season 1 intro. That's why you don't see her wearing her brand new suit from the Marvels movie. Iron Man is wearing his Mark 50 armor from Avengers Infinity War, the first version of the nano suit. Thor is wearing a golden version of his armor from the first Thor movie. He also continued wearing that through the first Avengers movie too. Black Widow changes between a couple different versions, like it seems like they do her with the red hair from the first Avengers movie in that suit, then transitions to her blonde hair in her suit from Avengers Infinity War. Lake Bell also voices Black Widow in all of her different episodes, like all the different universe versions of that character. She voiced the character during Season 1, and also, fun real-life connection too, she was also in Black Panther Wakanda Forever as this character here, briefly. This is the Steve Rogers Captain America in his Avengers Age of Ultron armor. Then as the camera pans out, they split to a bunch of alternate universes, just starting from the top left going to right. I can't tell whose eyeball this is, like it's a little too zoomed in on his face. This seems like the Red Hydra book that they used to control Winter Soldier. This is Captain Carter. This is the frost giant form of Loki, who was from a reality where Odin never took him, and he was just raised by frost giants. This looks like Thor in his armor from Thor the Dark World. This version of Ultron seems like he's the Season 1 Ultron who got all the Infinity Stones and became a living Infinity Gauntlet. Below him is Heimdall, then there's Chadwick Boseman, Star-Lord, Black Panther from Season 1. I can't tell who's right next to him. Like I said, some of these scenes are from Season 1. Down at the bottom, starting at left going to right, there's Spider-Man, Wen Wu from the Shang-Chi movie. He's one of the new characters this season. Below him, I think, is a scene from the Marvel 1602 episode. Zombie Scarlet Witch seems like she's from Season 1 here. This is a young version of Bill Foster Goliath. He's in that 1980s Avengers episode. That's going to be Episode 2. I can't tell who's next to him, but then Gamora seems like she's from the Iron Man Sakaar episode this season. Supreme Strange is right next to her. This is just Captain America's shield from the first Captain America movie, still stuck in the ice. Below them is Iron Man in the donut from the events of Iron Man 2. I think this scene is also from his episode in Season 1. When the camera zooms out a little more, the shards break, change again to different universes. There's Child Gamora from the events of Avengers Infinity War, Winter Soldier right below her. Then we get a new scene of a younger version of Red Guardian next to them in his armor. I don't know which episode he's in. He also might be in the 1980s Avengers episode or something totally different. I think this is meant to be Shang-Chi's mother. This is Topaz next to her, the new character Kahori. I can't tell who's above them with the blonde hair. Next to them seems like a version of Thunderbolt Ross. This is another version of Loki from earlier in the timeline. Seems like the events of the first Avengers movie. Down at the bottom, from left to right, is Mar-Vell from the 1980s Avengers movie. I think that Annette Bening came back to voice her again. Nick Fury, this seems like a younger version of Shuri. This is Ant-Man, probably also from that 1980s Avengers episode, and it's the Hank Pym version of Ant-Man on that 1980s Avengers. Then we get Nebula with Yondu's fin from Episode 1, which we're in the middle of right now, when she joins the Nova Corps. This is Hela in one of her episodes. I believe she's in a couple this season. When the camera zooms out again, there are a couple more characters visible around the edges of the frame here. Iron Man up top. This is Obadiah Stane over on the far right. I think he's also from Season 1. Then because this episode is the Nebula episode, the camera zooms into her particular fragment like it's traveling into Nebula's universe here. And we get another montage as the intro continues to zoom through a bunch of different realities. One of the differences, though, is that all the realities that it zooms through during this part are from Season 2 episodes. Some of these fragments are a little too blurry and small to actually see, but this one is the Hulk from the Marvel 1602 episode. This is Black Panther, and it's actually King T'Chaka Black Panther during the 1980s Avengers episode, because that version back in the 1980s winds up joining that Avengers team. And it is the same actor who played the live-action version of the young King T'Chaka in the first Black Panther movie coming back to do the character again. This is meant to be Black Widow with red hair. Next to her is Skinny Boy Steve Rogers as a version of the Winter Soldier in Captain Carter's reality. This scene of the Grand Master I think is from the Iron Man episode this season. This Odin is also from the Hela Shang-Chi 10 Rings episode this season. I'm not sure which episode this Winter Soldier is from. It also might be from that 1980s Avengers episode. There's another version of Captain Marvel that seems like it's relatively close to present day, and then the rest of this intro plays the same from the Season 1 intro with the Watcher's voiceover being the exact same. We get a little more narration from the Watcher explaining the backstory of this universe. I already kind of explained how things went differently between Ronan, Thanos, and the Black Order, basically. Nebula finds the schematics for the shield wall that Yondu had obtained and kept in his fin and arrow weapon, which she winds up taking later in the episode as her own. They bring back Jude Law's Yon-Rogg character from the first Captain Marvel movie, claiming that he was also on planet when the shield wall went up and had been working with Nova Prime and Ronan to bring the shield down and take over the planet. Notice she also clocks Nova Prime when she says to use any means necessary to solve the case. That was what tipped her off that Nova Prime was probably in on this. She goes to Howard the Duck's underground casino that he's been running. Seth Green comes back to voice the character again. He voices him in live-action Guardians of the Galaxy movies too. Most of the characters in general are from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and the Thor movies. And the way they explained this is all these characters were on the planet when that attack was happening and the shield wall went up and they've been trapped on the planet ever since then. So like Groot was on planet, but Rocket was not, which is why Rocket isn't here with Groot. Also notice it's still the original version of Groot, not Groot's son, who is like the new version of Groot. That's the way James Gunn explains him. He's kind of like Groot's son, basically, who's the Giga Chad version of Groot now. They're calling the swole version of Groot now the Alpha Groot. So that's why this version is super skinny, like he is not meant to be Alpha Groot. He's the original version of Groot. Meek is here from the Thor movies. He's tending bar and working as a chef. Drax is at the slots. Taika Waititi comes back to voice Korg, who's the main bartender. And they basically discover that Yondu had learned about the plot to bring the shield down. When she breaks Yon-Rogg out of prison, like I said, Jude Law came back to voice his character. This is also a reference to the prison break in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like all the prison uniforms are the same color of yellow. It's the same type of prison run by the Nova Corps. The way they escape is also similar to the way the Guardians escaped in the first movie by disabling the power briefly. Part of the idea here too, I think explaining why Yon-Rogg is here is because he is Kree, just like Ronan the Accuser. It's just that Yon-Rogg is a pink-skinned Kree, which is why he doesn't look the same, but they're part of the same army. They were working together during the first Captain Marvel movie. So it makes sense that he would be working with Ronan to try and take over the planet secretly. One of the only other real differences with Ronan the Accuser is that he is part of the Accuser Corps, which is like a special hardcore sect of their military. Nebula basically uses Yon-Rogg to help bring out Nova Prime and confirm her theory that she was part of this, and that's what she means when she says she doesn't need him to understand what they're doing, she only needs him to live up to his reputation because she wants this double cross that he pulls to actually go down so that it will help bring out Nova Prime. And basically the Corps here is like the MCU version of the Nova Force, which is a bit of a reference to the Nova comics, the actual Nova character. They are working on an actual Nova project, even though they kind of turned Nebula into a version of Nova during this episode. So we'll eventually get actual Nova from the Nova comics in the MCU at some point. When it calls Nebula an Omega-class being, that's a reference to Omega-class mutants in the X-Men comics. Like, I'm not expecting a ton of X-Men stuff during What If Season 2 because they started working on it before they actually got a lot of their Fantastic Four X-Men stuff going, and we have X-Men 97 coming really soon after these episodes. But in reality, Nebula is not a mutant, and she's not meant to be an Omega-level mutant at that. There are only about 14 Omega-level mutants right now in the comics. The most powerful ones are, like most common ones people think of, are Franklin Richards, Jean Grey, Phoenix, Magneto, Iceman, Storm, Legion. Those are just some of the notable ones, though. Interestingly enough, though, like Apocalypse, for instance, not classified currently as an Omega-level mutant because in order to be classified as one, it has to be based on your core power, and a lot of Apocalypse's power is taken from other people's powers or from, like, Celestials, for instance. This is where he gets all of his technology from. We'll get really deep into the weeds on X-Men lore, X-Men Easter eggs during the X-Men 97 episodes pretty soon. Nebula successfully tricks them into believing that they were able to double-cross her. Nova Prime reveals her treachery. Howard the Duck then helps repair Nebula, and part of the joke here, I think, is it also took all of her winnings from the slot machine in exchange for his help. Like, okay, we'll repair you, but I'm going to take all this stuff. When he jokes about pawning her for parts, that's also a reference to something that Thanos mentioned during Avengers Infinity War. They upgrade her with Yondu's fin and arrow weapon, which he continues to use after the end of the episode, and they form a new version of the Guardians of the Galaxy, basically. Like, this is meant to be a new Guardians of the Galaxy team. Nebula taking everyone out with Yondu's fin is also a reference to the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 movie, where Yondu basically did the same thing to all the Ravagers. She reveals that she changed the shield codes during her download, causing them to close on Ronan's ship, the Dark Aster, destroying it and killing Ronan, meaning that after the end of the episode, there's no more need for the shield wall. They just bring it down permanently after this. Korg basically pulls a Hulk versus Loki, thrashing him like in the Avengers movie on Yon-Rogg, the other Nova Corps member. And Nova Prime inadvertently causes her own death when she tries to kill Nebula while she's attempting to save her. R.I.P. During the outro, the Watcher ends with a voiceover about Nebula's redemption, which they kind of did in the MCU. It just took way longer to happen in the MCU, finding her way to the light, quote-unquote, referencing her Nova Corps vow she took earlier in the episode when she joined the Nova Corps. And I think the idea here is that after the end of this episode, she goes back to regular Nova Corps duty, assuming that they dealt with all the other corrupt members on the team. During the end credits, they play background scenes from across the episode. They all look like really amazing wallpapers too. Like those really cool scenes from each episode. So I'm assuming the end credits for every single episode will change just based on different scenes from each particular episode. That's basically what they did during the season 1 episodes. Like all the end credit scenes were unique to each episode. There were a bunch of Easter eggs and references in the episode, so if you spotted any that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. My episode 2 video will post tomorrow morning. It'll be the 1980s Avengers episode, so it should be pretty cool. And each episode will post around the same time each morning through the finale. Remember, there are 9 episodes total. This is what the schedule actually is. There's also a bunch of other stuff happening the next couple of days this weekend, so I'll try to do videos for Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon and Aquaman 2 in the next couple of days, so make sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that stuff. Click here for that What If Season 2 Episode 2 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that tomorrow, and click here for all my What If episodes. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.